Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I have another book review for you. We will be reviewing Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. This is a fairly short book. It's coming in just under 200 pages. I think it took me like 3 to 4 days to finish, so it was a pretty quick read for me. This is a sci-fi thriller. It has a bit of mystery in it, a little bit of fantasy, and overall, let's just not get to the overall feelings of the book just yet. So I've got my Goodreads review pulled up here to kind of guide me along in what I want to say in this review. So basically, this story is about this section of the world that has been discovered, and it has been dubbed Area X, in which this area has been overcome by nature. So civilization has been wiped clean, and we have found a way to breach a border to cross into this area. So there are several expeditions that go to this place to map out the area, to try to figure out what has happened, to document their experiences while there, to document how they each react to each other, and in the hopes of not being subject to what goes on in Area X. So none of the expeditions quite work out. Some of them end in mass suicide. Some of them end in homicide. And some of them end in absolutely nothing, where they find their way back to the world as we know it, and then they die of cancer, or they have just no recollection of seeing anything outside of the ordinary in Area X. So the story revolves around 4 main characters. We have an anthropologist, a surveyor, a psychologist, and the biologist, which the biologist is the narrative viewpoint that we see throughout the book. The story begins with their entrance into Area X, and right off the bat, you don't really get a glimpse into these characters. We don't get to know what their names are. We don't get a description of what they look like. So if you're really into character-driven, if you really need to be connected to your characters, this is not the book for you. That's one thing that I did not like about this book. That's one thing that I found so frustrating, because several pages in, I think even several chapters in, I was still thinking of these characters as the opposite sex. All of these characters are female, and I just kept thinking for some reason that they were men. I was just so frustrated reading it. I had so many questions that were eventually answered. Not all of them, but most of them were answered by the end of the book. But I was so frustrated because I didn't want to keep reading, but I did anyway. And then I found myself thinking about this book when I wasn't reading, like when I had to work or something. So that right there tells me that Jeff has written a brilliant novel. The whole idea of Area X in itself and its story is just brilliant. It's original, and for that I have to give due credit. This is the first book in a trilogy. I'm probably not going to read any further than this, and it's because of the writing. And I know that's probably due to my lack of experience in reading sci-fi. But when it comes to the enjoyment factor, I did not get what I look for in reading from this. I did not find that enjoyment for me personally. And this is one of these books that I feel so many different people could read it, and then one person love it and one person hate it, or one person like me is like, meh, but I couldn't DNF it. I'm going to treat this as a standalone book. If you're interested in reading it, it could be read as a standalone book. The way that it ends, I was completely satisfied, and I don't feel the need to continue on with the trilogy. However, I stopped by the video store and I got the movie. So I'm really interested in watching this to see how they portrayed Area X and all of the special things that are inside of Area X, and I want to compare it to what I had envisioned in my mind to see if there are any sort of similarities at all. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I wanted to get this review up before I watched the movie because I did not want that to affect how I feel about this book. The next thing that I need to talk about is the delivery and the language of this book. Now, it's probably due to the fact that I'm not experienced in reading sci-fi. I haven't read a lot. I do want to read outside of my comfort zone. I want to read things that I normally wouldn't read. But that being said, I just could not get into this as much as I had hoped I would when I began reading this book. I love the story. I love the idea around the story, but I just wish that it had been delivered to me in a different way so that I could appreciate it more. One thing that I didn't like about this was that the action to me seemed kind of choppy. At one point, the main character is standing at the top of a lighthouse and she's describing seeing a figure down below, and it's of a person. And then in the next sentence, she's describing standing literally next to that person. So it's like, how did you get from point A to point B? And I just didn't like that. I didn't like that at all. And it just didn't do it for me. What I did like about this story was the fact that some information was not revealed to us until later points in the story, such as the fact that the biologist's husband was part of the previous expedition. And once I heard that, my heart started beating a little bit faster. The story got a little bit more interesting. And I was like, okay, well, what are her motives now for being in Area X? So a lot of things were revealed later on, and I really enjoyed that aspect of the book. This is the hardest book that I've had to rate this year, but I'm going to give it a 3 stars because I couldn't get past all of the things, all of the negative things that I found in the story. For me, as a personal reader with personal interests, I just couldn't get past the things that I disliked. However, I did enjoy the story. I did enjoy how it ended. I enjoyed the idea of the story, how original it was, and I just found it to be brilliant, to be honest. This is the end of this review. I hope you guys enjoyed, and until next time, don't forget to bookmark Beth.